No, Prabhu.
I don't know, they've become so busy to say hi also.
We didn't want to interfere in the recording, Prabhu.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Anvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarunda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today's verse is 3rd canto, 4th chapter. Close this. 3rd canto, 4th chapter, 34th verse. And we are coming close to this section. 1 second. Close to this section of meeting of the Vidura and Uddhava. So far what happened was Duryodhana gets really mad at Vidura and sends him out after the palace, and Vidura goes for pilgrimages. And when he goes to Prabhashetra, he comes to know of the news that that Yudhishthira Maharaj took up the throne of the kingdom, and all other relatives are gone away. With a deep heart, he continues pilgrimage, and then he goes to Saraswati, River Saraswati, and then he goes to many temples out there, and then finally he reaches Vrindavan, bank of the Yamuna. There he gets to meet Uddhava. The situation of Uddhava here is that Krishna has left. Before Krishna leaving, he told Uddhava, go to Badrikashram and share my association with them. But Uddhava, when he was going to Badrikashram, he's not able to keep himself. Not following the instructions of Krishna, he comes back and looks searching for Krishna. Luckily, he sees Krishna at the bank of the river Saraswati, and then he falls at the feet of Krishna. At the same time, Maitreya Muni comes, and then Krishna does some magic here. The magic is that Maitreya Muni was a jnani, and Krishna deliberately doesn't give any attention, but he gives a lot of affection and attention to Uddhava. So that kind of transforms Maitreya quite drastically. So Krishna again consoles Uddhava, and he leaves. And now Uddhava is in a great separation. Now he is at the bank of the river Yamuna. So when Vidura comes and just turns on the topic of Krishna and his devotees, Uddhava loses his attention and his presence in this world. He just gets into the trance and just goes on remembering all the pastimes of Krishna and so on, which is the most beautiful section in this Bhagavatam, especially at this point of time, because this kind of association, this kind of a elaboration on the pastimes of Krishna will not come until the next 10 chapters. So we need to hold on to this mercy of these 3 chapters for the next 7 cantos. So now Uddhava, Vidura comes and asks Uddhava, please tell me more, please initiate me and so on. Uddhava tells more, but he doesn't initiate. He tells you need to go to Maitreya Muni. So now we are coming close of this section. We are in the 4th chapter of this whole section. And yesterday, we had a nice discussion how the humanly pastimes of Krishna is not revealed to anyone less than pure devotees. Anyone without, if there is no pure devotion, that's it. It cannot be relieved, and that is kind of a problem happening here. So, as wonderful as this section, the best association of a pure devotee Uddhava we got, and then best elaboration, best pastimes of Krishna, very, very special section it is. And now we're at the end. There's a caution part to it. The caution part is the way the trouble goes on. Like basically, essence is that offense. The essence of offense is that seeing something spiritual as material. Okay, but the problem is people in this world are material, and Krishna is spiritual. Krishna and his devotees are spiritual. So when they come, whatever they do, it doesn't make sense. Then that gets into bigger trouble. So that's the gist of this, yesterday's verse and today's verses. So we'll get into the verse 34, which says, Dehanyasam chatasvaevam dhiranam dhairyavardhanam anyesham duskarataram pashunam viklavatmanam. So this personality of Godhead, the supreme personality of Godhead, the all spiritual person, he takes up the body, deha, like in the previous verse, kridiyo patta dehasya. For the sake of the pastimes, he exercises his lila potency and takes up a body, and that itself is a mystery for many people, which was the yesterday's verse. The Supreme Lord, the Paramatma, is taking up the body, and then he's doing the pastimes. That itself is a mystery. But when it comes to text 34, Nyasam, he also tries to give up that body. Also, not only he takes up the body, he also tries to give up the body. Why is he giving up the body? he doesn't have, first of all, he doesn't have anything to take, give up. But why is he doing that? Is he wants to relate to this people in this world, that is, who are in this fully material conscious or aspiring spiritualists. Especially to convince the people in the material consciousness, he does this pastime also of giving up or disappearing from this world, giving up this body and so on, with in the form of a shot by arrow of the hunter. So when Krishna is doing all these things, dehanyasam chatasya evam, what happens? It kind of relates to relates in three different ways to these three different types of people. So there are Dhiras, or the great devotees of the sages. For them, it is Dharya Vardhanam. It just enthuses them. And whereas there are other people, for them it is very difficult to ascertain, Dushkarataram. But when it comes to Pasuna, beastly people or animalistic people or fully material conscious people, it is very, very disturbing to the mind. So I was when I was thinking about this verse, I thought I will put it out in a simpler way. As I said, Krishna is all spiritual. People here are fully material, and there are people who are trying to move from material or bodily conscious to spiritual consciousness. So what happening is, when Krishna is all spiritual is coming and tries to perform the pastimes and tries to interact with them, actually, as Radhakunj Bihari Prabhu was quoting yesterday, he is trying to come deliver us. But when he is trying to do that, for aspiring spiritualists, it's not easy. Anyasham Dushkarataram, very difficult at that time. And whereas for pure devotees, it is like, wow, most wonderful pastimes, how wonderful Krishna is. And whereas once in the fully bodily conscious, it is like very troublesome. And when people are receiving this, where there are consequences, especially in this purport, Prabhupada elaborates more on the Vikla Pashunam, asuric mentality, or persons observed in the bodily consciousness. Basically, Prabhupada says that Krishna, quoting 16th chapter, this asurim yonim people, like he just sink them to the most abominable type of existence. So then, then the question comes: how is that Krishna can do like that, right? So again, I found out a little formula here. A little simple way to understand. The simpler way to understand is, Krishna nicely gives this facility or most wonderful, most powerful vehicle called this body. And when he gives this body, people either, out of ignorance or out of foolishness or whatever reason one can be, they do this, they do these activities which are not prescribed. Then, like for example, humans, they go on eating non-vegetarian. Then what Krishna says is, okay, you like to eat flesh, but if you do this in this human body, there's a lot of sin. So better, let me give you the lion body or a tiger body, so that you can have that without any problem. So that is how Krishna sinks the people into this most abominable type of existence. It is a mercy, obviously, but the problem is that when one falls into that lower consciousness, it takes quite a bit of effort to come up again, to at least to get the human body, and what to speak of spiritual consciousness and devotional consciousness. So that's the gist of this Bhagavad Gita 16th chapter, where Prabhupada writes here. So it is clearly stated that the demonic people, life after life, are put into the wombs of similar demons and not achieving the mercy of the Supreme Lord. They go down and down. So that at last, they achieve bodies like those of cats, dogs, and hogs. It is clearly stated that such demons have practically no chance of reviving the mercy of God at any stage of later life. They practically sink to become hogs and dogs. So why that is happening is because Krishna doesn't reveal himself to those people. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogo maya samavritaha mudoyam na bijanati lokamam ajam avyayam. When Krishna is coming and doing all these pastimes, people, he doesn't reveal himself fully, or they don't have the spiritual consciousness to see the spiritual nature of Krishna. Then they get to see Krishna as an ordinary and the Krishna as a temporary person. Both, he has taken birth, Ajam, though but who is actually unborn, and Avyayam, inaccessible. When one takes to this consciousness, one gets into this situation, and then they get into this dushkrita, sukriti and dushkrita, they get into the bad activities, and the bad activities is they get into the naradama or mayaprita, or especially they take up the asuric bhava. When the people take up the asuric bhava, boom, down to the lowest existence. So with that, we'll come to the verse. Dehanyasam tatasyevam dhiranam dhairyavardhanam anyesham dushkarataram pasunam viklavatmanam. Dehanyasam, entering the body. Cha, also. Tasya, his. Evam, also. Dhiranam, of great sages. Dhairya, perseverance. Vardhanam, increasing. Anyesham, for others. Dushkarataram, very difficult to ascertain. Pasunam, of the beast. Viklava, disturbed. Atmanam, of such minds. Okay, getting into the translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord's glorious acts and his acceptance of various transcendental forms for the performance of extraordinary pastimes in the mortal world are very difficult for anyone other than his devotees to understand. And for the beasts, is simply a mental disturbance. Purport. The transcendental forms and pastimes of the Lord, as described in Bhagavad Gita, are difficult subject matters for those who are not devotees to understand. The Lord never revealed himself to persons like the jnanis and yogis. And there are others who, because of their envying the Lord from the bottom of their hearts, are classified amongst the beasts. And for such envious beasts, the subject matter of the Lord's appearance and disappearance is simply a mental disturbance. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:15, the miscreants who are simply concerned with material enjoyment, who work very hard like the beasts of burden, can hardly know the personality of Godhead at any stage due to asurika bhava, a spirit of revolt against the Supreme Lord. That is the this verse 7:15. Namam dushkritino moda, dushkritinos, moda, foolish, they're very hardworking, and they're not practicing devotion service. They're not cultivating bhakti, basically. And prapadyante naradama, the lowest among mankind. They do a little bit spiritual, but not really cultivating bhakti. And maya paruta, they're getting actually distracted in the form of they're doing spiritual, religious, and all that, but they're getting misdirected by maya, and then asurimbhava masritaha. They take up the opposition to Krishna. So for them, it is simply a mental disturbance. So the transcendental bodily expansions manifested by the Lord for his pastimes in the material world and the appearance and disappearance of such transcendental expansions are very difficult subject matters. And those who are not devotees are not advised to discuss the Lord's appearance and disappearance, lest they commit further offenses at the lotus feet of the Lord. The more they discuss the transcendental appearance and disappearance of the Lord in the Asuric spirit, the more they enter into the darkest region of hell, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 16:20. Anyone who is against the transcendental loving service of the Lord is more or less a beastly creature, as confirmed in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Pretty heavy, right? But this is also reality. Like when we go to dhams, like especially the places like Vrindavan, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, and so on, especially in the time of Kartik. I remember like we were instructed to be cautious. Our spiritual master Rompal Maharaj said that, there is a lot of good effect in this Kartik staying in the dham. Our devotion service merits like, boom up like anything. It become like 1,000 times and more than 1,000 times of more than 1,000 times worth. At the same time, any offense we do, it's also similar effect. That's a reality. Actually, some people even live Krishna consciousness also. So the way it relates for us is, here the mention is about Krishna, but it's also a similar thing with Krishna's, Krishna's pure devotees also. Their actions, when we try to see, from the materialistic vision, for sure it doesn't work out. For sure, like we're going to turn away. For sure, we have to go through this whole, if not to that effect, to the degree, but we need to go through whatever we need to go through. And the same time, when we are aspiring, okay, let me accept, let me try to just be patient. Let me be, be a little bit dhairya, confidence. But it's not easy to process it. It's quite a bit of hard work to process it. So the solution is we have to go to the dhiras and cultivate and receive their blessings of pure devotion from them. Then this same pastimes will become like most wonderful nectar. So I know we are already 8 o'clock, but I want to say this one. To what to do, the positive effect. The positive effect I'm coming to is going to Manasiksha. This kind of a anartha or the trouble the devotee goes through, Raghunath Das Goswami puts it as a bathing in a donkey urine. And he also gives a solution here. Let us go through the prayer sung by Mukunda Prabhu and Shruti Mataji.
Jaran mutre snae Are cheta prodyat kapata kutinate bharakara Jaran mutre snatva dahasi katam atmanamapimam Sadatvam gandharva giridhara pada prema vilasat Sudambodau snatva svamapi nitaramam chasukaya
O ruffian mind, why do you burn yourself and me, the soul, by bathing in the trickling urine of the great donkey of full-blown hypocrisy and duplicity. Instead, you should always bathe in the ocean of love emanating from the lotus feet of Sri Sri Gandharvika Giridhari, thereby delighting yourself and me.
So that is the recommendation of Raghunath Das Goswami, is instead of bathing in this trickling urine, bathe in the ocean of love emanating from the lotus feet of Gandharvika Giridhari. So just in a short, not going into much details, there are how this tendency is exhibited in the devotees is different for different levels. For example, there is a the Svanista devotee who is really a very young devotee. He seeks enjoyment, sense enjoyment instead of pleasing the Lord, and serve the rich materialists instead of Vaishnavas, and desiring to accumulate wealth and opulence, he engages in the twisted logic of spiritual knowledge. So this is the examples, his example of how a person is getting into this donkey urine. Basically, like a donkey urine, Urmila Mataji puts this offense as, there are different obstacles that devotee faces, in a sense, we cannot stop doing, we get attracted to some things very strongly. There's a grosser behavior, and then that's one kind of obstacle. And this donkey urine obstacle is something within our heart. Within our heart, our heart feels a kind of tightness on the devotees and Krishna and devotees and so on, so that's called the donkey urine. So, and this is exhibited in the form of here is a devotee, she is preferring to the rich people's association rather than the devotees association. And here is another lady, Mataji. She was attracted to this royal opulence and so on. And then there is this prabhu who is twisting the logic to match his opinions. And then similarly, a little bit senior devotee, then he is receiving obeisances, but he is taking the respects to himself. And then he is little bit harsh on the younger devotees. And then they do more collect and read more than required and associate with improperly with opposite sex in the name of spiritual practices and so on. And then there is a little bit more advanced. So they become friendly with the materialistic people in the hope of getting some assistance, and they're concerned with external dresses and rules and so on. Okay, so this the disturbance manifests in this form in the life of a devotee is this way. He really not able to understand what other devotees are doing. Then we just take it as, in going through the disturbance, basically to keeping it simple. So what to do is Raghunath Das Goswami telling is that bathe in the ocean of love emanating from the lotus feet of basically Sri Sri Gandharvika Giridhari, thereby delighting ourselves. That's a solution. So I'm going to take 5 more minutes. So basically we need to take shelter of Krishna, and we need to acknowledge that we don't have enough spiritual consciousness to process these things in a right way, and take up the job of cultivating spiritual consciousness or Krishna consciousness. And so that cultivation of Krishna consciousness can be different for different devotees. Some devotees, they really like chanting, some devotees, they really like serving, somehow or other cultivate Krishna consciousness and spiritual consciousness. But since we are all on this Zoom call, we are all sincere followers of Srimad Bhagavatam, the scriptures. So I like this method. the method, this method to overcome this obstacle or to save ourselves from this kind of a disturbance situation is that study the scriptures. When we study the scripture, with the acceptance that we need to we are lacking spiritual consciousness, then suddenly Krishna pops out. Of course, there is a caution there when we are studying the scripture also, that the mind tends to increase the judgment towards the devotee or Krishna, to further cause more disturbance. We have to caution that, and we have to look for Krishna or spiritual consciousness. So when we study the scripture, then we get to see Krishna. When we get to see Krishna, then then our mind shifts. Basically, the way mind shifts is in the initial part, like little bit of Krishna consciousness will come, and we continue, it becomes an absorption, and we continue, it becomes a meditation. When we get to this meditation, actually, that attracts Krishna's mercy more and more, then basically we get more and more absorbed in Krishna consciousness when we are doing our activities, right? Otherwise we get absorbed in the other consciousness. But if we continue the same path, then when we are absorbed in Krishna consciousness, when we are doing other activities also, then actually we get into the samadhi stage. In that samadhi stage, actually, we get to see Krishna in our heart also. We get more clarity of the disturbing situation. And then if I can go further, Krishna actually can come out and talk to us. And, that way, our spiritual life get blossomed. So this is a summary. The summary is that we should never lose respect and worship to Krishna and his devotees. And yes, when we are cultivating, when we are aspiring devotees, sometimes it is not easy. But knowing the effects of the disturbed consciousness, we should take up the practice of cultivating spiritual consciousness. So that way, that which we are getting dragged to the more and more suffering and more pain and more and hell, more away from Krishna, actually we can get dragged to the more and more closer to Krishna and more elevated consciousness. And then we get to the stage of Dhiranam Dhairyavardhanam. Again, the verse is Nyasam.
Most companies.
Such a topic with this. Okay. Dehanyasam chatasyevam Dhiranam Dhairyavardhanam Anyasham Dushkarataram Pasunam Viklatmanam. At least we need to save ourselves from this beastly disturbance. That's it, dear devotees, presentation for today. I thought to mention about it earlier that it will go late, it will get spilled out, but I hope you can manage your, the extra austerity today. So if possible, please, we can take 2-3 minutes to share any reflections or appreciations or realizations, awakenings and so on. Okay. So there is nothing. We'll go on. So Srimad Bhagavatam Jai, God Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Are close to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all. Bye.